Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 4 trade targets for fantasy football in 2021. Inside of today's video, we're going to be going over 5 players that I believe that you guys should be looking to acquire via trade, because I believe that their value is only going to increase in the coming weeks, which will make them much harder to acquire in the next coming weeks, because right now, you are getting a great value on these players. But before we get on into things, I'd like to ask, if you are new to my channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to my channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask that if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description of the video. So without further ado, let's get into things. We begin with my number 1 trade target of the week, and that is Stefan Diggs, wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills. Now, going into the season, Stefan Diggs was widely considered to be in the consideration to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. Now, a majority of people had Devontae Adams ranked at number 1. I saw a lot of people had Tyreek Hill, and the others had Stefan Diggs as the number 1 overall wide receiver in fantasy football, and he has not lived up to those expectations thus far. Has Stefan Diggs been a bust? Definitely not, right? Because he wasn't a guy that you were looking at inside the first round, and right now he's like wide receiver 50 or something. Right now, Stefan Diggs is the wide receiver number 24 in PPR, 28.5 PPR, and the wide receiver number 32. And while he hasn't been a bust, that's obviously a huge disappointment for what you expect out of a wide receiver that you drafted either in the first round or in the early second round of drafts just a couple of weeks ago. But I do believe that things are going to turn around for Stefan Diggs. Last week up against the Washington football team, Diggs had 6 receptions on 10 targets for 62 receiving yards. Last week, Emmanuel Sanders finds the end zone twice. Last week, Zach Moss scores, Dawson Knox scores, but Stefan Diggs just has not really found the end zone thus far this season. But I believe things are going to be on the up and up for Stefan Diggs. In the first 2 games, the Buffalo Bills offense, to me, just didn't look very good. Up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, to me, it looked like they were struggling immensely. In week number 2, up against the Dolphins, for the first half of the game, they struggled immensely, and then in the second half, they let things loose after the Dolphins defense basically gave up. Josh Allen was slinging the pigskin all around, and he had a huge game, but Diggs still wasn't playing all that well. And last week, up against the Washington football team, sure, he had 10 targets, but he only had 6 receptions for 62 yards. But I do believe that things are going to turn around for Stefan Diggs. His upcoming schedule is very solid for fantasy production. This week, he gets the Houston Texans, and I wouldn't be surprised if Diggs dropped 25 or 30 PPR points in this game. Then he gets the Kansas City Chiefs. While on paper, that is a tougher matchup. I believe these two teams will play very close to each other, and I believe that the Buffalo Bills will be able to put up a high point total in that game. Then they get the Titans. The Titans defense seems to be complete and utter dog shit. Then they get the Dolphins, which is a tough matchup in my mind, but if they get down in that game, if the Dolphins get down, then the defense, and basically do next to nothing for the rest of the game. After that Dolphins game, for the second time of the year, then they get the Jacksonville Jaguars, then the New York Jets. So it should be some easy sailing, some smooth sailing for Stefan Diggs for the rest of the upcoming weeks of the season. Stefan Diggs is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He's still on one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he still is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL throwing him the ball. So things are bound to change. Things are bound to have a switch up for Stefan Diggs, and I still believe that he could easily finish inside of the top 5 at the wide receiver position on the year. Next up, we move to the running back position with Joe Mixon, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, week number 1, Joe Mixon goes berserk like that song by Eminem, and then after that, he kind of slowed down, and he hasn't topped over 11 PPR points in the last 2 games. But it is very clear to me that he is the clear workhorse running back here in Cincinnati, that there's really no worry of any other running back behind him taking away too much value from Joe Mixon. Last week, he had 18 carries for 90 yards up against a tough Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Sadly, the thing that's really hurting Joe Mixon is he's not potentially going to be seeing 5, 6, 7, 8 targets every single game. Last week up against the Steelers, he had 1 reception on 1 target for 4 yards, which obviously is not going to be helping you out too much in a PPR or half PPR format. But if he's able to find the end zone, then we're looking at Joe Mixon as a completely different running back this week, because he did get 90 yards. So if he scores a touchdown and maybe catches another 2 or 3 passes, then he's one of the better running backs on the week. So I think things are going to certainly turn around for Joe Mixon. He showed us, at least at the beginning of the year, in that first game, that he is a very talented running back and that he is the clear running back 1 on this team. His next upcoming schedule is relatively solid as well. He gets the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, which is a cupcake matchup. He should have no struggle at all being one of the better running backs on the week in this game. And then he gets the Green Bay Packers, but the 49ers ran relatively well on them, then the Lions, then the Ravens, then the Jets, and then the Cleveland Browns. So it should be a relatively solid upcoming schedule for Joe Mixon. And like I said, he is the clear number 1 running back on the team, and he's still running back 15 in PPR right now, 14 half PPR, and the running back number 11 in standard. He's a lot better, at least in my opinion. He has looked a lot better than I perceived that he would look this season, despite the offensive line not being all that great. They still game plan the ball into Joe Mixon's hands, and I believe that Joe Mixon is going to be a very solid running back from here on out, and he does have the potential to finish as a top 8 running back on the season, which is much better than where people were drafting him for before the season began. Next up, we have wide receiver of my Miami Dolphins, Jaylen Waddle. This week up against the Indianapolis Colts, I believe Jaylen Waddle is in a smash matchup, and I believe that Jaylen Waddle is the go-to receiver in this Dolphins offense, being fired 13 targets last week, 12 receptions, and 58 receiving yards up against the Raiders. Now I know, but Nick, he only got 58 receiving yards, and I agree. That is not very good, because they're just throwing the ball 4 yards in front of the offensive line, and they're just feeding him with these like 4 yards. They're not necessarily dump offs, but these 4-yard strikes to Jaylen Waddle to move up the field. And while, hey, if you're in a standard league, that's not really going to do shit for you, but if you're in PPR or a half PPR league, and this guy's getting 10 plus targets every single game, then that obviously is going to have a lot of value week in and week out. The Dolphins' upcoming schedule is about all right. We play the Colts this week, then we get the Bucs, then the Jags, the Falcons, Bills, and the Texans. Up against the Jaguars, up against the Falcons, and up against the Texans, I expect Jaylen Waddle to have very, very solid games. And I know that it may worry you a little bit that Will Fuller is there, that Devontae Parker is there. We did see Mike Gesicki get a whole lot of usage last week as well, and maybe some people will be concerned that once Tua gets back under center, that's going to throw things off for Jaylen Waddle, because he did have this big game with Jacoby Brissett under center. But my personal belief as a Dolphins fan is that once Tua takes over, it's going to be the exact same thing. For some reason, they just make Tua Tagovailoa just throw these short passes every single play. For some reason, I don't know why. But he's just basically a 4 or 5 yard completion machine. That's what Tua is. So he's just got to throw the ball a million times to Jaylen Waddle every game. While I hope that he starts taking deep shots to Will Fuller, and that Will Fuller is more incorporated into this offense, it seems like the way the Dolphins want to play football is by this short passing game attack, and Jaylen Waddle is going to be a monster if that is the case for the rest of the season. If you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting the like button. I would appreciate that a ton. Next up, we got a running back who just got hurt, Christian McCaffrey, running back of the Carolina Panthers. Now, Christian McCaffrey was not placed on the IR, which means that in most scenarios that he will be back in under 3 weeks. Now, that could definitely change, and they could end up throwing him onto the IR. And if that was to happen, that would make this situation a lot more confusing. But right now, based upon what I have read, it seems like he's going to be back not this week, but he could return next week or the week after that. And if that is the case, and the person that has Christian McCaffrey in your league may be struggling, then maybe they're going to look to get rid of Christian McCaffrey, because he's going to be gone for potentially multiple weeks, and they need a guy to play right now. So go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey. This guy is amazing, and I don't think I really need to get on both of my knees and give this guy the suck-off special or something, because everyone knows how good Christian motherfucking McCaffrey is. Up against the Texans, before he got hurt, he had 7 rushes for 31 yards, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 9 yards. Right now, Christian McCaffrey is the running back 4 in PPR. He's the running back 3.5 PPR, and he is the running back number 5 in standard. Every single week, Christian McCaffrey has the upside to win you your game. So go ahead and get him right now while he's hurt, because this is the cheapest price you will ever get for Christian McCaffrey. The man may be back next week. He could play in next week's game, so go ahead and get Christian McCaffrey before it's too late. Because once he starts playing again, or once there's a definitive timetable, once it comes out that, hey, McCaffrey's going to play next week, then no one's going to want to trade him. But right now, with the timetable up in the air at least a little bit, the opportunity to swoop in and get Christian McCaffrey is right now. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the final trade target of the week, and that is Robert Woods, wide receiver of the LA Rams. Now, I understand, Nick, Cooper Kupp, oh man, Cooper Kupp's really screwing Robert Woods. I don't know what to do with the Robert Woods. Well, right now I'm telling you guys to please hold on to Robert Woods. I understand why you'd want to trade him, but I'm thinking I'm trading for him right now, because right now you could trade fucking a half-eaten bag of chips, a used condom, for Robert Woods right now. Because Cooper Kupp is just feasting. He's feasting every single game. And he's feasting before every single practice in breakfast with Matthew Stafford. For some reason, Robert Woods hasn't been all that great this season. But I don't think that magically Robert Woods went from being a guy that people talked up, including myself, to have top 12 potential, to being in a fucking garbage bin. Robert Woods is still a very talented wide receiver. Robert Woods is still on one of the best teams in the NFL with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Eventually, the ball is going to get thrown the way of Robert Woods. It just has to. It just has to be a bounce back time soon. Right now, if you have Robert Woods, I'm advising that you sit him. I don't really see that he is going to have a huge game this week. But I do think that in the future, things are going to open up a lot more for Robert Woods. I mean, Deshaun Jackson and Van Jefferson are having these big games. Where's the big game for Bobby Trees? To me, it's going to come soon, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to hold on to Robert Woods, and if I can acquire him for, like, such low value, because right now, people just want to get rid of Robert Woods. They're so nervous about what's happening with Cooper Kupp that they just want to get rid of him. So go ahead and send an offer. Send a lowball offer, because in a lot of situations, people will accept that for Robert Woods because he just has not performed really at all up to the likings and the standards of where you drafted Robert Woods. So please make sure that you go ahead and get Robert Woods, because if he pops off this week, if he pops off next week, then people are going to want to hold on to Robert Woods, or they're going to be asking for a much heavier price than they're going to be asking for right now. Robert Woods is wide receiver 47 in PPR right now, 49 half PPR, and the wide receiver 46 in standard. That absolutely sucks ass compared to where you drafted Robert Woods, so go ahead and snag him now before it is too late. So thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below as well. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys. Make sure you have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, good boy. And let me know down below who your guys' favorite trade target is of the week. I love you guys. Stay safe as always. Good boy.